When you're building a culture of belonging, every word counts. That's why Textio brings the world's most advanced language insights into your hiring and employer brand content. Our industry leading approach to artificial intelligence and machine learning provides the tools needed to find more diverse candidates. In short, Textio builds more equitable workspaces, guiding businesses and writing more inclusive job posts. And we're building on that success by bringing even more products to the market for all people who share our belief that language matters. Words have power, and at Textio, we harness that power to increase the access and availability of value-driven work for everyone.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. All right, welcome to season 4 of The Access Point. It is so exciting to be here with you again. We enjoy these meetings week, and we were missing all of you while we were away. We hope you had an incredible summer and that you are excited for what this new season brings. I am Lonnie Morris, one of your co-hosts, and we are excited that you are with us for, Thursday of The Access Point, part of the Living Corporate programming. Living Corporate is a digital media network consultancy focused on workplace and inclusion. Living Corporate centers and amplifies Black and Brown voices in the workplace through digital media production and business-to-business consulting. The network offers a variety of programming, and tonight, of course, you get to join us for our favorite show. I think all of them are our favorite. But our show, The Access Point. The Access Point is a weekly webinar focused on preparing Black and Brown college students and early career professionals for the workforce by real nuanced talks they don't yet know they need. And for this show, we will focus closely on the real challenges that you, our listeners, are facing as you move through the early stages of your career. The important disclaimer here is that the thoughts and views expressed in tonight's discussion do not reflect the views of any organization with which the host or guests may be affiliated. Again, I'm Dr. Lonnie, and I am a management consultant and professor. I spend my time helping incredible professionals figure out the nuances of work and to help people hate their jobs less and make people behave better in the workplace. My co-host is the incredible Dr. Wendy.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Wendy M. Edmonds, Dr. Wendy. I am a management consultant and author of Intoxicating Followership. I'm also a professor. And guess what? When you think about your job, maybe you think it is your treasure. But what I do is I help you separate the counterfeit from the jewels and the gems. All right, back to you, Lonnie.
I got you. Thank you so much, Dr. Wendy. And tonight we have an impeccable guest and someone who I've known and been inspired by his work for quite some time. He is an author, he is a DEI professional, and he is making waves across the coast. I know he's got a lot of things going on. I can't wait to hear all about it. My friend, one of my inspirations, J.R. McDonald. Welcome to the show. Why don't you give us a brief introduction?
Yes. Thank you so much. So excited to be here on the Access Point, and I am really looking forward to today's conversation. My name is J.R. McDonald, and as Dr. Lonnie said, I am a DEI professional, but also, in addition to that, People Transformer. Role as an author and facilitator is to allow leaders and especially my Black and Brown people to understand that their words matter and how to use their words to transform their lives. So I'm really excited about today's conversation.
And I'm excited because I need some words to help transform my life. I'm ready for that. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So tonight's discussion, we are really we're looking at what it means to fall forward as the seasons are changing and we're moving from summer and the weather's getting a little cooler. I'm living in Philadelphia, so it's a little around 65 earlier today, but it got warmer. And doing that with intention and momentum as the seasons change. And we're really going to discuss it in the context of something I think is pretty interesting. And I want to introduce it this way. September is a very interesting month because there are so many things happening and that are sort of standards for our calendar. And then we've also had some incredible things happen just in terms of worldwide news. We know today is the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Celebration. We know we also lost the Queen of England this month, and there's a few other things that have happened. But I want to take us to something that's just happening. What's today? Today's the 14th. So earlier this week, we celebrated, and some of you may not know this, that there's a holiday. I don't know if it's really a holiday, but at least there's a celebration, acknowledgement of National Boss Employee Exchange Day, right? And that's on the 12th, and it is standard. And I learned this very recently. It is this idea of changing places with your boss and learning each other's role to be able to appreciate that. And it is always what I learned, Dr. Wendy and J.R. McDonald, that it comes the week after National Labor Day. So this celebration of how employees have contributed to the strength and prosperity and well-being of not only our organizations, but our nation. So I want to begin with that as our context and sort of throw this question out to you as we start. Why is it important in this day and this age that we are taking time out, or at least that there's time allotted for us to celebrate something like our collective contributions to the workforce? JR, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important about that is recognize that, we have been investing so much into, I want to say the workforce, but into, the world, for so long. So I think sometimes when we look at, you know, what we have done as professionals or even outside of professionals, because, I sometimes believe that, you know, when I especially thinking about celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month is that, black and brown people helped to build this country, to, help give us the rhythm and the step that we all have. So I think sometimes sitting back to actually put on the glasses and looking through the lens of another is important to kind of see the contributions, to understand sometimes the sacrifices that we've made along this journey. I think it's important to do that. And we get a lot of insight into that, and hopefully we get appreciation for each other when we switch roles, for that there's a necessity that we all bring to the table. So I think that's an important piece for me of that, and identity.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you mentioned this idea of looking through the lens of others and getting insight, because I laugh when I think about this idea of National Labor Day, because I have only known Labor Day to be a day off from work. Never had a conversation about what it means. No boss ever told me, here's how we are honoring this and celebrating, or what it means for our organization, for our department. No company I've ever worked for, no company I've ever worked with. So it's just been a day we get off. I never understood why. It's okay. It's called Labor Day. I know we do a lot of celebrations around that. So Dr. Wendy, tell me, why else does this exist, and what should we be learning from it? Dr. Wendy, you there? Maybe we're having some technical difficulties. All right, so JR, how about you and I continue this conversation? I think she's having some microphone issues. So what should we be learning from this?
I think it should be a time where we learn from each other. We should learn, thinking in the DEI space, what should be retired? Inclusive language. Because when we think about the labor workforce today, it's not the same as it was even 2 years ago. Many of us, the past couple of years, we have been working in whether it was virtually, remotely, some now in the hybrid workforce, kind of looking at, where we are today and, how can we do business, how can we still exceed expectations or kind of, help support our companies or even personal values that we have? How can we continue to contribute to that as we are maybe not in the office as much as we have been, or even if we are in the labor market and we're still like having to go back in, how can we still make those connections? So I think it should be that reflection point. I think I'm more like you too, like Dr. Lonnie. I I don't think I ever thought of it as, more of a reflection, but more of a day off. Like, yes, I need a break. Let me breathe. Let me celebrate.
Right. Like,
I
I am
almost
not
said,
laboring. Thank you.
yes, thank you. Someone gets it. Like it needs to come around every quarter, to be honest with you. So,
We need to have one of these every week.
yes.
Dr. Wendy, are you back?
It looks like I'm back.
There you go. I mean,
Yes.
we missed you. So why don't you chime in here? So what should we be learning from this idea of the National Labor Day and this time off, appreciating our contributions to the workplace?
That we probably need not to commercialize it and think that everyone should go out. If that's what makes you happy, that's fine. But that is everybody's mental health weekend. And I think that the workplace should understand that we need this a little more frequently, more than once a year.
I love this idea of not commercializing it, right? Because again, up until now, my only understanding of this was I know there are a bunch of celebrations that go on around the country because I used to frequent some of those, right? This is the time I'm looking for flights. Where do I go? How can I get the best hotels? Where can I stay? Where I can be on the beach or wherever that is. It's never been socialized to me in any social setting or in a professional setting. Here's why this day is honored and included in our calendar. Now, here's something I think. Go ahead.
Think that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying that. In fact, they think that if you just relax, if you just sit back, if you just take that time off as a laborer, wrong. Like you should be doing something.
I need a pre-labor and a Labor Day.
Why?
All right.
Yes, I know you can't see me, but I'm snapping my fingers on that one.
Yes. I love to snap the fingers. So I got one for both of you. I think that there's some difference here in the symbolism of National Labor Day versus the reality. And particularly for us, for Black and brown people at work, there's some symbolism to this that kind of speaks to Dr. Wendy's comment about how this is commercialized. But then what's the reality for us? What should we be really cautious about?
Say that question one more. So cautious as it relates to thinking about labor, or what do you mean, Lonnie?
About all of those things, about thinking about labor, about considering our contributions, our collective contributions, about our roles in the workplace. Yeah, right?
Yeah, everyone, if I can just add, I think one of the things we definitely have to be cautious of, and it's one of the things that I am constantly telling myself is, one, your brand. What is it that you're trying to communicate? Because I feel like we all have one at work, does it speak to where you're going? And, sometimes I feel it's important too. What's the perception out there, as it relates to whether it's the labor market? We know we've been dealing with the great resignation for some time now, but what is it, your personal perception, as it relates to you in the labor market and your perception of you as you show up at work? So that's one of the things I'm always trying to be cautious of, how I'm showing up and how does that equate or relate to my brand, because I want to make sure that I have some accountability partners that will be honest, that's just not feed goal, but that's also sharing with me, that knows my aspirations, where I want to go, and being fruitful, on the journey there, because it truly is definitely a journey. Because these spaces, especially whether you are entering, as a young professional or you are pretty tenured, you kind of reminded many times that pieces were not designed for us. and we are carving out a path once we get there.
There you go. So no matter if you are just coming out or if you are tenured, there's a responsibility that we have. Part of what you've mentioned and Dr. Wendy mentioned as well is our reflection during this time isn't just about having the day off, but what does this really mean in the context of my career and my brand in this organization and in the space? That's important. Dr. Wendy, you have some thoughts on that? And maybe not. I think she's still having some audio challenges there. Not a problem. So I actually think there's something else I want to add to it. I think there's a difference when we look at our contributions, and you mentioned this, JR, that if the space isn't created for us, I know you're doing this work and there's some other warriors who are listening to us and we're working with us. I know our executive producer is in this space as well and trying to forge relationships or create paths or develop pathways for folks, then reflecting on contributions and the labor that it cost us to carry those heavy burdens, to push those rocks up the hill, that might be different than some of our counterparts in the workplace. And how do we help those people who are like us do this well also?
Yeah, I think Dr. Lonnie and Dr. Wendy, I think it's important that we have real talk, like what we're doing here on the Access Point. I think it's important to have these conversations. Role modeling is important, and just mentorship. I was, and having that real conversation. I was talking to. We have one of our coalitions that we have here, and we had a career coach that was sharing some tips. I think sometimes having someone that can let you know that is in roles and positions that you aspire to be, even if it's not the exact same title, but they can tell you, I was here doing this when there was not even anyone that even resembled me in this space,
Yeah.
And I think having a real talk sticks with you. I'm telling you, this career coach, she was on maybe a couple weeks ago, but one of the things that stood out to me the most that she said, for me personally, because I think that's what it is, because you really you find someone that resembles you and you are reminded that you can do it, but it's those words that you hold on to. And she was reminding us to fail forward or fail fast, and also it was a reminder too that every house is not a home.
You gonna sing? You gonna sing? You about to sing for us?
Come on, I'm about to hop it out. And because sometimes we want to force ourselves in these spaces, and if of course, we have to be reminded that no one can read minds. So we have to share out, what are we looking to do? How can I get there? What does it look like? What is success like? Ask those questions. But if you are showing up and doing exactly what you have been told to do, and you're still not being that culture ad, or feel like that culture ad that you can be, then sometimes it's time to look elsewhere, because every house is not a
home. So go ahead, Dr. Wendy.
Yes, I think I'm on, and hopefully you all can hear me
yes,
a little better. Okay, so a house is not a home. I am so not a singer, but it is about time to break out. I absolutely agree with the house not being a home. However, organizations and companies, they always say, look, we're looking for this diversity. We want you to be authentic and come to work. We want that in the space and in the place. And so discussions, when you are authentic, can cause a level of uncomfortability. And that's when you see the real, true feelings come out, the emotions come out. And that is going to be your determination as to whether or not this is going to be your house, which could be temporary, or are you going to make it a place where you stay and build your home?
Come on now, we need to have an artist on here to sing. It's like this should be an open mic night right here. Yeah. So, but go ahead, JR. You got something?
Well, I was going to add too is, when I was thinking about that authentic self, because I've been having some conflicting thoughts as of the past year or two, is because there are some people authentic selves that I don't know if I want to see at work. Um, like, and honestly, I'm thinking about others too, but I'm thinking about myself. Like, I don't know if you want to see how I act when I get behind the wheel, at work. I'm doing better. I'm on the road to recovery, but I'm not quite there. So I've been telling a lot of young leaders, Dr. Wendy and Dr. Lonnie, bring your best work self.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And I love how we're positioning this, right? Because this idea of your authentic self, asking the right questions, and determining if this is a house or a home, some of those things I think are related to the next part of this, is this idea of the boss employee exchange day. Because we know research shows us and practice shows us that bosses and managers can be a major source of trauma in the workplace.
Hello?
And
Mm-mm.
I'm not sure if I want the person who's already traumatizing me to be even more authentic, or if that person wants me to authentically respond to that. So when we think about this idea of trading places with your boss, what's that really about, Dr. Wendy?
It's funny because I saw that there was a boss employee exchange day, and different people read different ways of how they handled that on the job. There were some very specifics about how you should choose the person to exchange with, to almost making it very funny as to what the boss acts like. Oh, go get my cup of coffee. Oh, go get the donuts. And then the employee that they exchanged with was very different. Was very different, and it was almost like a comedy. It was almost like a comedy. So I have a thought about that. I'm not sure that I appreciate representation of that, because if I were to uh, have to change places and my boss could not be an African American woman, my age, my
Hold up.
height, my size, I'm not sure that I would want that, because you can't really get the true emotion of what I go through. And just for a day. So if we want to look at some statistics, the HBR, Harvard Business 2019, did an article on Toward a Racial Workplace. And one of the things that they mentioned in here is that Black people account for 12% of the U.S. workforce, right? And 13.4% of the general population. However, we don't represent the larger portion of the makeup of the businesses in the industry. So only 8% of managers and only 3.8% of CEOs are Black. This is a recent article, 2019. That's pretty recent, right? And when you think about it, look in politics. In politics, only 9% of our U.S. Congress and it make up our senators. So who do you change with and really get the feeling and understanding that you are understanding what it's like to be in that position and what are the results? And so if you're going to make a joke and it's just going to be fun, useless, because we need you to really get the experience and walk the talk. We need you to understand what it is to be Black in that space, to be the people of color in that space, in the workspace. So that's really how I felt about that. That some people made a joke out of it, and then some people were very specific as to how you choose, but no in any of the criteria of people of color.
So this is fast. Because when you look at the information about this day, boss employee exchange, it's supposed to be about bonding, taking a break from your regular responsibilities and having a fun learning opportunity. But to your point, there are things that we know are different for us in a space than for others. And I want to add to some of the stats you're looking at because I'm always thinking about this. And, Dr. Wendy and I have been doing this work a long time, looking at bosses and boss behavior. So I saw something from 2021 on Best Life, the website, bestlife.com. And they said what people hate about their boss. They hate their bosses because they're lazy, ungrateful, inappropriate, self-serving, poor listeners, lack empathy, condescending, and incompetent. Oh, it gets better. I found there's a research book, research on emotion in organizations, and they have a chapter in that book called "My Boss is Probably the Devil."
What?
And then in 2018, in the Journal of Organizational Behavior, they have an article, and the title is "Why Your Boss is Making You Sick." Right. So when we think about these things and the experiences that we know we're having or that we've had, that people who are listening have had or maybe having now, and to your point, Dr. Wendy, about creating a space to do something like this that gives everyone an opportunity to learn, everyone an opportunity to not just learn about the work, but learn about the people and the experiences. There are things that are really important for us to consider, because making a joke out of something like this, while it may be intended fun, doesn't necessarily mean it is fun for us. So I want to ask you, JR, when you think about these types of programs, right? This can be something that an ERG group puts together or HR pushes down and says, hey, we're going to do this. What might the people who are out there who are listening, who are managing organizations, who are the department heads, the supervisors, what are they getting wrong with programs like this?
Yeah, thank you for those stats that you all provided. That was definitely a wide awakening, just to hear that. I think sometimes what they might get wrong is many times they operate from assumptions, what they assume the other half wants from this day or what it should look like. It's made a mockery of, instead of, I think, asking, being more inclusive, what would you like to see this look like? How would this best suit you on this day? What's an opportunity? Because maybe what's best for you is actually being in some of those meetings in the C-suite or being in some of those leadership meetings, where you actually can, have some face time, because many times, you are having your voice in the room, but you're not in the room. It's someone else playing telephone with some of the ideas that you've carried up. I think what's even as I think about the National Boss Employee Exchange Day, because this is honestly, thank you, Access Point, because this is the first time I've actually heard of it, and I see that I'm like, what? Look at all these stats about this, because I've heard about a day in the life, where people swap roles, and just like Dr. Wendy said, I've seen the mocker, I've seen where someone dresses up as the boss and he or she is running in frazzled late and those things. And I've seen that, but look at it from this lens. What's tough for me is because many times people of color, I'm just trying to imagine this, people of color join this boss exchange days because many times these are roles that we have been looked over for, so how does this feel when you are swapping, but I'm already doing the job?
You just hit it right there. I think we need somebody to sing. This one we need a soundtrack right here. This House Is Not a Home should play right now.
Not Luther. So that's my thought about it, is because I think that can unearth some. I think that can unearth some things that companies are not ready to deal with, or if this is the reason why they make a mockery of it and make it lighthearted, because they actually know the systems that we're trying to dismantle, or the systems that they actually don't want to be as inclusive of, that we're trying to do in some of these spaces.
So let me add to that, right? Because in this research book that I found, the one on emotion in organizations, and the piece that talks about my boss is probably the devil, they examined these sites where people can give feedback on the organization and their boss. And they found that people complained about these things, sort of in generally speaking: understimulation in the workplace, boss mistreatment, coworker and boss incompetence, equity or lack thereof, and the imbalance in the effort and the reward. So when I read that, and I'm thinking, you already framed this as my boss is probably the devil, and now you want me in my organization where I already feel that I'm understimulated, being mistreated, there's lack of equity in a bunch of different practices, that I can probably do my boss's job, right? We've all had those experiences, or people who are supervising me don't have the same skill set that I have. And now you want me to change places with the person who, in the way this is framed, who is the devil for a day. Be the devil for a day. And let us all shuck a job about it. That's sad.
It is sad. It really is sad. And it also makes me think about why you would want to be exchanging places with someone who's doing the wrong thing. I think the first question is, sure, I'd love to exchange, but how about I exchange and say act like what it should be? And then that will show some results as to what it can be, as opposed to what my experience is today.
Yeah. Give you a chance to model the behavior you want to see.
Exactly.
I love that. And I love it if organizations and supervisors and managers and HR directors and all the people involved in the ecosystem would then take those things and show how we learn from it. But I'll tell you, I've not found anything yet as it relates to this. I see a lot of pleasantries exchanged. I've been following the hashtag on social media and multiple places, but I don't see anyone saying, and here's how we're taking what we learned from this day of multiple exchanges throughout our system and putting and informing how we do things differently, right? This is something that can't just be for a day. And here's another reason why. The Journal of Business Ethics did a study a few years ago, and and you have to forgive me, this is one of my soapbox issues. And the study is called Nightmare Bosses: The Impact of Abusive Supervision on Employee Sleep, Emotions, and Creativity. And what they found is that when you have the people down here, if we go back to the research on emotional organizations, where you think your boss is probably the devil, so the person who may be inflicting the most pain on you in the organization, that those experiences negatively impact creativity, contribute to sleep deprivation, and emotional exhaustion. So now we're asking our people who are carrying the weight of the organization or this cause to exchange with people in a space that we are saying could be made a mockery of, where your voice is not always in the room and you are deprived of sleep because you're trying to manage it, and exhausted emotionally, that you so much so that you can't even be creative to continue to solve problems. My question to you, Dr. Wendy, and to J.R. McDonald, how do we create a system of wellness around this to get us out of this?
I would say if you're going to participate in this isn't the workplace version of Halloween. Okay, this really could be used as a tool in a more strategic way to get feedback, to take a step back, get input, and make some changes, because the wellness piece of it is going to have to be dealt with, or else that whole quiet quitting is going to set in, or retention is definitely going to become a problem. But then you really know why. You absolutely know why. So I think, keeping this as a joke, as really lighthearted is a waste of time. It's a waste of time. I think the whole boss exchange day should be used as a strategic tool.
Strategic.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Dr. Wood. I think companies definitely have to do a self eval and see, are we truly ready for the responsibilities involved? Are we up for this challenge of actually doing the swap? What will the business benefit from a spot being on the front lines or actually being in the other shoes? And what I guess is the goal from it? I think we really do have to look at those things because I think if there is a toxicity or stagnation amongst team members, then there may not be a benefit. You may get more of the same. But if you do have leaders or team members that are inspired, they feel creative, they want to participate, and they feel as though this will be an opportunity to challenge and be in spaces that give them some face time, then I think that'll be valuable. But if it's as some of the stats have shown where it may not be or maybe more of the same, then I think that this should be something that should be later down the road when we've actually started really getting to the root cause of some of the wellness at the corporation, because sometimes we'll put these performative actions in place.
Yeah.
And we're not getting to the root of what truly is there. How can we actually make sure that our associates are well, work, they understand that your sick day can be a mental health day. It doesn't mean that you're actually sick, but maybe I am just really exhausted and tired. Need some time for myself so that I can show up better. So I think role modeling and having leaders that are in a place to do that may be ready for it, but then you should really get to the root cause of the issue.
Or how about on the other side where maybe my life is good and I enjoy home? The problem is when I get here.
Talk about it.
So then, right? So what does wellness look like when you're the cause? It forces them to reflect and realize they are creating some of the anxiety that's causing me to be uncomfortable, that's causing me to not sleep well, that's causing me to pick up weight and eat in the manner that I normally would not. It causes the organization to take a step back and say, oh my gosh, are we? And it mean that because you offer EAP through the insurance, that's the only thing that you need to do is just offer that through the insurance plan and see that I'm doing I'm taking advantage of what I'm paying for. What is it that the organizations are really offering to the employees? And we need to hold them accountable. We need to hold them accountable for what they say. If wellness really is important, and we know it is, then what are you doing about it?
So I'm gonna tell you why I love this, because we started out the show talking about falling forward. Seasons are changing with intention and with momentum. And so what I hear you both saying is that there's a responsibility in this on the employee as well as the organization. And so it's speaking up for how to do things like this in an appropriate way, in a responsible way, and that it's a opportunity for organizational learning and it's not just performative. And here's something else I think is really important to this. Just this week, CNBC had something come out that says that 49% of workers fear the repercussions about being, if they're open about their mental health challenges that are created by work, right? And within that number, they say that the bosses and employees typically see the organizational structure very differently. 70% of the executives that they interviewed or surveyed believe that the employees think the organization promotes a healthy work-life balance, while only 53% of employees feel that way. So collectively what we're saying is, if you're going to do something like this, and I think the National Boss Employee Exchange Day, we've been talking about that because that was this week, this previous Monday, but it really is sort of metaphoric for other types of things that can happen in your organization, that you have to have courageous conversations about it. You have to be honest with what your goals are. You have to have people involved in conversations about how we structure it and what do we want from it. What does it mean for our employees? What do we learn as an organization? And we have to be with what it really should look like when people are honest about how we want to see something like any of these types of activities executed and launched in our space. So we all have a role to play here. So what are we recommending to the young people who are growing in their career, who may not be as seasoned as the three of us, who will stand up and say, hey, I think that's stupid, don't do it? What about if you are the person who has only been in the organization for a couple of years and you're thinking, I don't think this is a good idea?
Okay, I am going to take I don't know if it's a different approach to answering this, but a real approach in answering this. And I love the conversation having, because all of us on the podcast are speaking and being real in every situation. So when it comes to wellness, when it comes to maybe I don't want to disclose whether or not I'm having any challenges, or perhaps you may see someone else who's doing it. We do have to hold the companies accountable for not only listening but doing something about it, because it can have a tragic ending. For example, what happens when you see behavior that you know isn't right and you tell people, and the people that you tell don't do anything, and it continues to go on and on until they end up on the news. So this is why it's important. If we can't joke about everything with this, boss exchange day. What are you learning from that? What exactly are you learning for that? So my sister is not here today because of that exact situation, right? Where someone behaves badly over and over and over again, but it gets tucked away. It doesn't get dealt with. There's excuses that are made. There's no wellness plan. And so ultimately it's, hey, go get some sleep, take a rest, and see you in a couple days, as opposed to dealing with what was exposed that everyone else saw. Okay, everyone else saw the bad behavior and it was not due to sleep deprivation. There were just indications that there were other issues, but because no one wanted to take care of it, he comes in and wipes out an entire department, 12 people. One of my sister was one of those people who he murdered. And so this is why we have to take this very seriously. And we have to tell young people, if you see something, say something. And if no one does anything, go outside your agency, organization, company, and make sure that it is taken care of. And even if it's you and you need that help, then you do that for yourself. And so we're talking about priorities. Priorities is self-preservation. That's really what it boils down to. And look out for others. It's safety. It's the psychological safety. Am I okay in this company for having these discussions? Is this a safe place for me, in a safe space for me to even have this conversation? We have to hold companies accountable, not just for what they put on their website and pictures they have on social media. Are they doing this? There are risks that are life threatening, and a loss of life.
Yes, yes, yes. And, with that psychological safety, Dr. Wendy, that's the piece that, and I know a lot of our Gen Zers, they are not afraid to say what's on their mind, and expressing themselves. And I think that's what I think we all can learn, excuse me, from each other. But I think that's the importance, is that, when you feel like you can express yourself fully, you're more engaged. You want to add to the culture. You want to be there. You want to be present. And I think when you don't feel that you can do that, or feel comfortable doing that, or the company's values and those pictures on the website that you speak of don't seem to match the experience that you're having, that's when you start to retreat. So I think it's important that, in the culture that you're building is indicative of the leadership that you have. And if that leadership does not meet up to those or measure up to those values, then you don't work here. This is the culture. This is what it looks like. This is holding ourselves accountable. We want to make sure that everyone feels as though that they are invited in, that this is a positive work culture and that, they're able to share because, one of the things that we must know is that no one can read minds, so you have to be able to be in a space because we spend most of our time at work, and giving our output, giving our best. And if we feel like we can't share and be our best work self, then maybe that's not the space for us. And that's where that real conversation has to happen. Even asking those questions with your team. What can we count on each other for? What's our purpose? What do we aspire to have? What do I want from you as a leader? Anytime I join a team, and it's every year, to be honest, even if I have the same leader, I want to know what is the vision?
Yeah.
What is the vision that you have? Because if I assign or understand the vision that you have assigned, then I don't know what we're working towards and I can't be inspired to do it. So once I have the vision, I want to know how can I help you get there, because this should be a, iron sharpens iron opportunity that we're developing with each other. And I think when you have people that actually understand the why versus I told you to do this just because, or this is why you do this is what we do here, but you have a true understanding of this, I think you approach, the fundamentals of the company and your position with what you add to that company a little differently.
And I love that we're closing with these ideas, because this notion of a vision, and I've worked with multiple as a coach, and that have had difficulty articulating what's the vision of just my unit, right? That sometimes that stuff is written on paper, and I've been on consulting projects where we can look at the work that people are doing and what people are telling us when we're gathering data and say, your documents say one thing, but I'm not hearing that from the people. So you've articulated it well in writing, but it's not translating into practice. And so as we are thinking about what does it mean in the context of falling forward with momentum, with intention, and considering our collective contribution around organizational strength and prosperity and well-being, what we said is there is a responsibility on everybody's part to speak up, to make sure you understand it, so that you can dial into that vision, so you can be clear about if this is a house or if this is a home, so that you are prioritizing wellness. And that's not just your own personal wellness, but that's the well-being of the people around you that you're working with. And thank you so much, Dr. Wendy, for sharing about your sister. I'm so sorry that you experienced that. And that being a burden that we have to shoulder for ourselves and for the people we care about, that we work with. And that this idea of asking the right questions to make sure that we're getting the right answers, and that this is not performative activities, that there is some value in how we're shaping what this looks like, and all these things that we pour into the space. I want us to remember that not just as we move from National Labor Day and this fun idea, I guess we've sort of taken it away from being fun, of the Boston Employee Exchange Day.
As it should.
I don't think nobody want to do that no more. Like, that is over. Right? But there are going to be other things on the calendar, right? There are some other things coming up this month. There are things that are happening in October, that are happening in November. They want you to be able to take a very critical social lens with, and have incredible conversations, courageous conversations in the organizations about how do we do this, how do we do this well, and for everyone's well-being. JR, I know that you have something really exciting coming up, and I want to give you a chance to do a plug on that.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you both, Dr. Wendy and Dr. Lonnie. Thank you for having me on the Access Point. I'm really excited. I am launching my own podcast next Thursday.
Woo!
And
And we're gonna come over there and talk about quiet
Yes.
quitting.
yes, all right now. Our people gonna reach out to each other. Well, I'll personally be reaching out to you. But I'm really excited about it. It's called the Butterfly Chamber because there is so much that happens in our cocoon phase, in those dark hours that no one ever sees, but it's sometimes we'll look at that as if, that's the end for us or, this dark moment, not birth, something great. But if we look at that butterfly when it does come out, that can be our story. So it's all about focusing on where you want to go, not simply where you are in the moment and what language can you use to get you where you're going. So we're going to be talking about some inspiration and, how we're navigating life, but, overall just having a great time together.
Wow, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited about that. I love to talk about coming out of the cocoon and everything that's associated with it. We'll be there.
Yes.
Just tell me when. All right.
Definitely.
So we are coming to a close. Thank you so much for joining us for the kickoff of our season. Remember that today's conversation, as you reflect on this, not just this evening, as you go forward, it's about how do you fall forward with the changing of the seasons with momentum and intention. We want you to keep all those things in mind that we discussed tonight. We're excited to have you with us again. Hope to see you back next week. If you want to continue to connect with us for Living Corporate, here's how you find us. On the web, we are at livingcorporate.tv. On Twitter, it's at livingcorp_pod. And LinkedIn is Living Corporate. And Instagram, it is at Living Corporate. Dr. Wendy, it's always a pleasure to be on here with you. J.R. McDonald, congratulations on the launch of your show and all of your success. And thank you for bringing so much incredible input to this discussion. Everybody, have a great night. I'm Dr. Lonnie. See you next week.
Thank you.
This episode of Living Corporate is brought to you by Blind. Blind is a safe, trusted community of more than 5 million verified professionals. Head over to teamblind.com to get the latest insights into salaries, company reviews, and interview experiences at thousands of companies worldwide.